I want to have a talk about Infinity Ultron. So yesterday, hot off the press, I was winning cubes. I went up shoot, I don't know. I had like three 8 cubers back to back. And I was just doing real good with Infinity Ultron. And then I got back on later in the evening, right? And the card just wasn't performing how it was in the first hour or two, right? And so I went with Surfer. It was my first attempt. And look, I don't even think I have the deck still that I used. But I tried Nomura. So before I get into that, um, out of 5 costs, it's awkward, right? So the thought is, okay, use Luna Snow or Hope and ramp him out early. Now, in that case, right, you're building around this card. So then it becomes a hope, right, that you get what you need. So right now, we can see Surfer. This deck here is running a 60.5% win rate. I was doing a magic style where I was trying to do Sarah, right? So I guess what they're doing is using Luna Snow to ramp out Sarah because you're not using Hope. It really doesn't make sense. What Hope is doing in the deck. Hope is just in the deck, more just to get extra energy, I guess. But the problem with Hope in a Surfer deck is, okay, so you play it on 3, and then when I typically play Hope, I usually play it in High Evolutionary. Why? Because I got the Wasp, and the Wasp is doing 2 functions. It's going to make a negative affliction point on their side, and it's going to give me energy, right? Well, here in this deck, you're going to play it on 3, so you can't ramp anything out on 4. So you're ramping something out on 5, but the problem is you got to play Sarah on 5, and you don't have the extra energy. So maybe you play Infinity Ultron plus Quinjet, right? And then you've got 2 extra energy. Or you play, but if you played Quinjet on 1, then you have nothing else. So you play Sarah on the Hope, right? And then you've got 1 extra energy. But 2, 4, 6, and then that spare energy you're doing nothing with. Now it's good, right? If you have, say, a 2 cost in there, you play Mojo with Brood, or you play Forge, right? Something like that to take up that extra energy. So you at that point have to figure out what you put in. Iron Patriot is in here so that you can have a discounted card. Iron Patriot is in here just for good stats. But the problem is that there's nothing in here that really needs Infinity Ultron. So let's look at this. Let's take Luna Snow and just imagine you didn't get her, right? So you didn't get Luna Snow, you got Hope. And again, Hope on 3. You can't ramp out on 4, so you're playing Galacta, right? That's the Hope. Haha. And then let's say you don't play Sarah, you play Infinity Ultron. So you get a 9 power Ultron, right? Because you're not going to play him on the Galacta lane. So you either put the power on Hope on turn 5, or you put it on turn 6. Now, that power point, or that, energy, doesn't matter. You put that extra energy out. That is not getting used by anything, right? Okay. Let me rephrase that. You're going to put Galacta in another lane. You're going to put Infinity Ultron on Hope on 5 because you have Quinjet, which will... No, because Quinjet's not even discount... Okay, so Quinjet isn't discounting it except by 1. So yeah, so you can play both. So you're still in a quandary here, right? So you can play both stones that you get, and hopefully that wins you. But you can't play anything else because you have no other discounts. So literally, hope is working against this deck, right? Now, you're hoping. I really don't know. You hope that you get hope on 3. Then if you get Luna Snow on top of the hope on 4, now you've got 2 extra energy. So you Sarah on top of the hope. Now you've got discount plus 2 extra energy. So then you can play. That's where it comes in. So in those instances, now you can play Galacta. So you're going to have, hold on, Hope's an energy and Luna Snow is an energy. So you can have 8 energies. So you can play Galacta and 2 3 costs. Or you can play, yeah. So that's where you win if you get the net. And then the stones are going to be 1 cost each. So you can figure it out from there. So you can play like, I don't know. You can figure it out, right? And then you have options. Galactus typically going to want to be played because otherwise your Brood and your Shaw aren't getting up that big. Because you're not guaranteed to have the Mini Wong. I don't know. The deck seems to be working. But the problem comes in that I could remove Infinity Ultron, right? Because actually, in that scenario, you played Hope, Luna, Sarah. You didn't play Infinity Ultron, so your Quinjet on 1 means nothing. So you can't play the stones. So you have no Wong. So you're hitting things for 1 time. So you're going to Galacta into Brood, and then Surfer, and then hopefully Copycat. But you didn't play Infinity Ultron, and he didn't net you the win. And I guarantee you could remove Quinjet and Infinity Ultron, and this deck would soar. And that is the problem with Infinity Ultron. Elsewhere, we have Infinity Ultron with Ethan. You can see that's a flat 50%. In my experience, you never want Aeson pulling the stones. Like maybe if it's the double power stone, but usually you've got the drone stone, so you want to put like, I don't know. I've seen Aeson pulling arrows and all kinds of things. You've got, I would put in probably instead of Psylocke, I would put in, I forget her name. The card that, well, let's just go back. Mirage. Mirage works with the collector, and she's also something that Aeson can pull. I didn't notice Victoria Hand in that deck. I don't know. I've seen Victoria Hand. I think Victoria Hand is a must when you've got so many cards generated. Just why not get that extra value, right? And over here, got this. It's an Airstream deck. 66%, 280 games, right? But Infinity Ultron is not winning these games. I can guarantee you he's not. It's the Goliath, it's the Legion, it's the Copycat, it's so many other things, the Mockingbird, the Aeson. So many things that are winning you the games and not Infinity Ultron. Alright, so then what is my beef with Infinity Ultron? Well, I wanted him to be a good card, and he's not. But in actuality, he's just cost way too much, and he takes too much effort. So this morning, like last night, I thought, okay, thought as everybody else did, hand generation, right? He's generating cards in the hand, so we got to do something with Collector and Victoria Hand, and we have to, all this stuff, right? And then I thought Surfer as well, because the stones are 3, and you can do Sarah on 4 with Luna Snow, and then you can do Infinity Ultron on 5, and then, your turns, you can do 2, 4, and then 2 stones, right? Or if you've got Quinjet out, or you can do a lot of stuff. And that's how I was, stealing cubes and whatnot, but it's not consistent. I did get the perfect draw with the perfect Well, here, take a look. So right here, I don't have footage of it, but I got everything. I got the Wong into the Infinity Power Stone with the Infinity Reality Stone. I had Infinity Ultron drop on Shuri's lab, and it was just the perfect, as you can see, 56 power Ultron, 56 power drone. That was a game 7. It had Shuri's lab. I didn't get Shang-Chi. Perfect, perfect. But in reality, this never happens. Like, you're going to get Infinity Power Stone and the Space Stone to move something. You're going to get the Mini Wong, and you're not going to have really anything to use with it. And it just becomes like an RNG thing. And they cost so much. Everything costs so much. But Second Dinner usually does themes, right? They do themes for the season, and it's usually like, oh, here's some X-Men, here's some Avengers. Right now it's the What If, but so it's different versions of other cards, right? Captain America, he buffs ongoing cards in his location, and Captain Carter buffs the back row in her location based on her power, right? And so you can see these alternate versions. Infinity Ultron is a what if. Instead of Thanos, he got the stones, right? So, of course, he's going to play similar but very different to Thanos. And he's also playing similar but very different to OG Ultron. So, place all the drones out. Well, he can place a drone out. And so, like Thanos, he's a build-around card. You're either building around the stones for Thanos or you're building around Thanos himself, which Thanos likes to have big partners with him, so you put down big partners. But usually the best scenario right now is with Zoo, especially in the ongoing meta that we're in. So if you think about it like that, where Second Dinner has themes that they put out, what is the theme for this what if? It's what if, but not, but it's also buffing. So everything in this season has been focused on buffing. Goliath buffs himself, Hydra Stomper buffs himself, Strange is going to buff himself. They all buff themselves in some way. Captain Carter doesn't buff herself. She buffs something else based on her power. So I thought, okay, Ultron is in a season of buffing. He has a card that literally doubles his power. Power Stone, right? And so I thought, what if we buff his power and work from there? And I tried all sorts of things. That wasn't it. But I started with Namora. And Namora is just such a hard deck to play because it's just trying to get, and this is just the latest version. I tried all kinds of cards. I tried the Luna Snow, all sorts of things. I wanted to get Infinity Ultron out on 4, and then Namora to buff him on 5. But between locations like Central Park and just, somebody would play Clog, or somebody would, because everybody's doing Kate Bishop, and they always get the acid arrow or just something, and then so they play it in a location that you hadn't played it, and it's just very hard. So then I was like, well, there's Agony, and there's Hulkbuster, and there's other things to, even a Gwenpool, but then it's like, okay, so I play Gwenpool on 4, right, or probably, hopefully on 3, hope that she hits the Infinity Ultron so I can play him on 5, because at that point I couldn't ramp out Infinity Ultron, and it just became a nightmare. So clearly that wasn't the way to go, right? And so then I went back to Surfer, and I was like, well, what if we just focus on buffing cards, right? And I tried a lot of different things, but the problem becomes, when do you buff Ultron? So if you're not buffing Ultron, which, maybe that's just a side effect, right? Maybe he's in a season with buffing, he can buff himself, but that's just a side effect. So then you look at the utility of the stones, right? And it just becomes a hassle because you're not guaranteed. No way. He's like a build-around card that you can't build around. So something like a Doom 2099, where it's very easy to build around Doom 2099. You just play cards that you want to play once a turn. You know, you could play Jessica Jones. Who cares? There. Now I've got 2 for 1. It doesn't really matter as long as the cards are good, and then you play 1 a turn. It's easy. It's simple. That's how you build around. This card wants to be buffed. He also wants to double doing other things. Really just his own self-buffing. It's all around him. Pull things to my lane. Worry about what my power's at. Double my power. Maybe double my power twice. You know? It's very much easier to slam down Black Panther and then Arnim Zola it. Because when you think about it, you're playing Ultron. If you buff him, if you don't have priority, or if you do have priority, you're going to get Shang-Chi out. If you don't have priority, I mean, you could get Cosmo'd. Really, it's hard because they don't know where you're going to play the stones, but it's just you're hoping for that draw to happen, and then how do you win the other locations? What do you put in the other locations? So I thought Captain Carter might be the best route. I don't have a deck up, right? But I'm thinking that might be the way to go. So placing him behind Carter. So one of the cool things is when you place the drone at the location, then you get it takes not only the permanent power that he has, but any non-permanent power too. So if he's getting buffed by Captain Carter, Blue Marvel, things like that, the drone will have that power as well. So I think that's probably the best route. Kaori, you can even drop that last turn if you've got it cheap enough, you know. You could do really, I don't know. But put a card here from your hand. That's a way to hopefully win a location, right? Move the lowest power enemy card here to the location of Infinity Ultron. I wish it was the highest power card, right? Something like a cannonball effect. That would be great. Now you're just hoping that, you know, the lowest power card. I mean, this is, and it's definitely one, I don't know. It's hard. Do you want priority with that or do you not? It's very hard to build around this card. Very, very hard. I don't have a deck I've settled on. I likely won't. I think this card needs to be a 4 cost minimum. Just make it a 4 cost. This is another one that I was shocked it wasn't an ongoing. So they wanted all the cards to be on reveal because they want them all to work with the Mind Stone, right? Your on reveal abilities happen twice. So, but it's just, even if you put out 4 power in each location, right? You've now spent, let's say you do this and this. So you're hoping maybe to put him in a zoo deck instead of as an alternate to what, like, Blue Marvel or something, like, I don't know, because at that point, or you know, again, we go back to the Surfer where you can zoo out a lot. So you put down the Brood in one lane, and then you usually fill up your other lanes and whatnot. But 4 power is just not a lot of power for these two. You get those two together, it's like, oh, okay, and then you have to play everything. I mean, I guess it counts on revealed cards too, but it's just, building around this card sucks. I'm going to do some more testing with Captain Carter because I definitely feel that's the way to go, especially since Captain Carter is so strong. You know, I thought maybe like, again, a Doom 2099 deck since it does a lot of zooming out, but the problem with that is you want to play 2 stones and you want to play 1 card a turn. So that was anti-synergy. It has no synergy with OG Ultron at all. Thanos, maybe it could work, you know. Thanos usually has a lot of draw, but then it's like these, again, the best Thanos decks right now are ongoing. And, you know, it could work, right? Because you've got extra draw and stuff, but it's just unnecessary. You could just do a regular Captain Carter deck and probably it'll work 1,000 times better. So that's where my head's at. I don't know really. There's no deck that you look at and say this wouldn't be better with Infinity Ultron replaced. And I don't think him going to a 4 cost yes, it makes it a bit easier to work around, especially in Surfer. Now he'll be a 3 cost with Sarah, right? And then hopefully, if you do the Quinjet, the stones will be 1 cost. And so your last turn, you're really going into a turn 7 at that point. Right? Or even if you do Sarah on 4 and then Infinity Ultron on 5 plus whatever 2 costed 3 card. Something like that, but yeah, I don't know. Infinity Ultron, I want to say his best days are ahead of him, but I think he's stagnant. Unlike an Agamotto, which can still see play because you can still surprise with the spells. Yes, Agamotto has the problem of your board just being empty, you know, and he's gonna go the way of Agamotto, where yes, every once in a while you'll see him pop up, but he's not. I mean, first off, he's gonna get a PowerPoint buff. I see that coming, and if not, I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked if it's not in the next OTA or the one after, the next patch, right? But yeah, it's not a card worth pulling. It's not an essential card. It was never an essential card. We all knew that. At 6% of the meta share point, what was that? I don't know, whatever. You know, it's higher, but not too high. We all knew it wasn't a card worth pulling, but I don't even think it's going to be a fun card to pull in a pack. Like, at this point, it's like, what do I do with him? So that's what I got for now, and if anybody differs, let me know. But or has anything that crazy they've seen with Ultron, I will continue to work on the Carter aspect, and if any revelations, but then I'll make another video. But chances are I will drop this card in the same way I did Agamotto and move on to something else I actually enjoy.